Hi everyone, welcome to It's Canon, a series of reviews where we take a look at Bionicle models that are either fan-made or never got an official set release. Today we're going to take a look at Krakua, originally designed in 2005 by John Dexter, and was entered in the Toa Building Contest, where it was declared the winner and became canonized within the Bionicle story. Before we get into the review, quick disclaimer. Any or all of these Canon models are open to inaccuracies. I try my best to build these as accurate to the source pictures as possible. If you want to build this model, instructions will be linked in the description below. So without any further ado, on to the review. Story-wise, we first meet Krakua as a Matoran, living in his village within the Krakua Peninsula, where he would be approached by Mazika. Once the village was attacked by Voltraz, Mazika was able to get Krakua to the Invisible Order of Matanui member, Jebraz, who was able to escort Krakua to safety away from the ensuing battle. When brought to the Order, Krakua would be transformed into a Toa, where he acted as a liaison between the Order of Matanui and the Toa. From here, Krakua would travel to Metronui with Helrix and Rothanak, giving Takanuva a mission to go aid the Toa Nuva in Kardanui. Krakua would also go and recruit Axum to aid in the coming war against the Brotherhood. After this, Krakua kinda goes silent until Pterodex has full control of the Matanui robot, where we see Holly convince Krakua to use his sonic powers to hail a small swarm of Borok to help fend off the invading Rakshi. Unfortunately though, after this battle, Krakua disappears entirely. Though, interesting little side note, as a Matoran, Krakua was a bit of a loner, as he would hum to himself while doing his daily tasks. And since D-Matoran are extremely sensitive to sounds, other Matoran in his village would often avoid him. Taking a look at the model, Krakua is a completely custom Toa design, and the first custom Toa to be canonized. Starting at the feet, you have standard Mata feet with a Borok eye attached on the back. Moving to the upper leg, it is made of Technic, using angled lift arms to connect everything, and on the shin, it is decorated with a single Visorak foot. The upper leg is pretty simple, using connectors and lift arms for structure, and then some 3 long pins for decoration. Now the torso of Krakua is quite interesting, as it's separated into the upper torso and the lower torso, to allow for a waist swivel, but I'll show that in a bit. The lower torso is pretty simple, being made of a bunch of connectors and axles and 2 ball joints to create the hips, and it's all connected to the upper torso by a pin. Moving up, the main torso is a clump of Technic parts, using some Hordiconnects at the shoulders, a Technic block for the chest, and a Metru foot on the back. From here we have the arms, and they're simple enough, using a number of connectors and lift arms. And the hand is again really simple, using the same parts we see with the 2001 Toa Mata, with this Technic block and 2 axles to simulate fingers. Krakua is also shown with 1 accessory, that being his Sonic Vibration Sword, which is used for melee combat and it allows him to channel his sound powers. And it's just made of a few connectors, a 12 long axle, and a ribbed hose. And it ports into the connector on Krakua's right hand. And lastly, Krakua wears a Great Kanoi Sulentu, which allows the user to read others' thoughts and project their own into the minds of others. And this is not it. This is a Kanoi How. See, when Krakua was canonized, his build wore a Kanoi How as the representative mask. But once he was given story relevance, the mask was changed to a Kanoi Sulentu. But at the time of Krakua's contest, the Sulentu didn't have a canon visualization, let alone a design. So the physical model looks like this. Krakua's primary appearances are few and far between, only showing up in a few books and a handful of story serials. His first appearance was in Bionicle Adventures number 10, Time Trap, where Vakama was given a vision of him by a Kratana. After that, he disappears until about 2008, where he makes a number of cameos in multiple pieces of literature, including Swamp of Secrets and Brothers in Arms. Alright, articulation wise for Krakua, first I'm just going to remove the sword, but just know that you do get a rotation at the hilt, so because he doesn't have fingers. So I'll just set that off to the side for now. So, starting at the feet, you have a ball joint, so you can go down that far. The Borak eye does restrict things. You can go forward that far, and you get a bit of tilt. Not too much. And of course, you get your full rotation. At the knee, you get straight out that far, and then you get 90 degrees of bend. Well, actually, over 90 degrees, sorry. Seen right there. Anyway, so there's that. The hips, you can go out all the way more than you need. They can kick forward way more than you need. No restrictions whatsoever. You don't get any rotation though. If you do rotate it, it will pop off the ball joint. Well, it will take the ball joint with it. So, yeah. Krakua is very interesting because he does have a waist swivel. So you get a 360 degree waist swivel. Mine is very squeaky. So, yeah, you do get that, which is very nice. Allows for some dynamic posing. You beat the uniters to it, too. So, at the shoulder, you get another ball joint. Can go all the way around. Up that far. Can only go down that far just because of the Hordika neck. And then you get an elbow, which can go only about 45 degrees because of how the connectors are designed. They do collide with each other after that 45 degree. And then you get two ball joints here. So you get one, you get your rotation, hinge, all that good stuff. And then because of the connector, there is another ball joint there. So you get another rotation and hinge and swivel and all that stuff. And this connector does lock, so you can stop that from moving. So yeah, and then at the neck you get a full rotation all the way around. When it gets to the back, it does collide with this foot piece, so you do get some hindrance right there. But overall, it's a very well articulated figure with pretty much no restrictions whatsoever. And then just give him back his sword. If I can get it in his hand, there we go. And of course it does have the hinge right there, as I mentioned earlier. So yeah, Krakua is a very well articulated figure. So the issues with this model. Krakua is very precariously built, often using only a single thin lift arm as the main connection point on a few places on the build. This ends up making him a little frail when posing, especially around the upper arms and the knees. Another issue is that his torso is under a bit of pressure. When we take off the foot on the back of the torso, we see two dark gray lift arms. These two parts here are sandwiched together very tight, to the point where building this is actually very difficult and puts a bit of stress on some of the parts. Though this is kind of needed for stability of the torso, as removing the forelong lift arm allows the torso to move freely. So it's an issue which is kind of integral to the build. Now, if you want to build this model for yourself from scratch, some of the more noteworthy pieces that may be hard to find or expensive are the Technic block that makes up the hands. These pieces only appeared in one slicer set, so they can be a bit difficult to find. The length 16 ribbed hose, which makes up his sword, and it can be a little more difficult to find at this length, as well it can be a bit pricey. The black pin axles. If I haven't made it apparent in previous videos, I hate these things. They are so hard to find at a decent price. If you're not a stickler for color, don't get these. They are not worth your time or money. The translucent yellow eye stalk. I had a hard time finding this, and I don't know why, as it is a more common piece coming in a handful of sets, such as Gali, Galinuva, and Takanuva. Though I guess this is an instance where your mileage may vary. These crankshaft pieces, these are not that common and seem to have been discontinued in the color black. Though they aren't usually too expensive, so getting them might just require a specific search. And lastly, the dark gray Kanoe How. This only came in the 2003 Takanuva set, mounted on the Usanui. That said, this piece has kind of become optional, thanks to the art of 3D printing, where you can print off your own custom Salentu to make Krakua even more story accurate. If you're interested in getting or printing one off yourself, I will leave links to a number of replacement masks in the description below. Alright, now we come to my favorite part of the video, size comparisons. So Krakua comes in at about 21 centimeters or 8¼ inches. From shoulder to shoulder, he's about 8 centimeters or 3 inches. Here he is next to a Mata. Here he is next to a Metru. And lastly, here he is next to an Anika. For some in-story comparisons, here he is next to Mazika, or an Avmantorn build. Here he is next to Takanuva, a Nuva build. And here he is next to Holly, and another Anika build. Here he is next to Axon. Ooh, these are bigger than anticipated. And lastly, here he is next to the Tatarak. And my previous It's Canon video, the Crystal Climber. So yeah, Krakua is a solid model that has some minor flaws, especially between the thin and tight connections, making the model really show its age, as a lot of these kinds of building techniques have either gotten alternatives with new or updated parts, or have been neglected due to better ways of assembly. The nice thing about Krakua though, it's very easy to update this figure with newer or better parts, almost as if it was designed to be ready to accept updates as time goes on. And it's this aspect that makes me like Krakua as a build even more, because I can update this figure without having to completely overhaul what makes the original build so enjoyable. So there you have Krakua, an absolutely great model, and one that I highly recommend you build. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date with all my latest videos. And with that, I'm Legend, and I will see you all next time.